Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. The Balrog that was awakened in Khazad-dûm obviously brought about the downfall of the greatest dwarven kingdom in Middle-earth's history. With that immense power, he might have even destroyed the great elven realms of Rivendell or perhaps even Lothlorien during the time of King Amroth, but he did not. Rather, after trolls, orcs, and his own wrath spread over the Khazad realm, the Balrog lingered and remained in those halls, being only slightly aware of what was happening directly outside, such as when Dane Ironfoot saw him during the Battle of Azan-Nulbazar. So, my friends, today let's break it down and find some answers together. Why did the Balrog stay in Moria during all those years, centuries, even over 1,000 years? Why did he stay in Moria and never leave? My friends, thank you all for joining me today. Let's begin our tale. Alright, so first off, Durin's Bane was the last known Balrog, certainly for the rest of the world, but also for himself. And he fled Thangorodrim and the fall of his kin and everything else. For his own survival, he kind of needed Moria more than anything else, right? For him to be able to flee away from the wrath of the Valar and their people and all of that at the end of the First Age, he needed to go underground and just kind of hide himself. Now, again, whether or not it was his intention to wait long enough for the gradual weakening of elves and men and their powers upon Middle-earth, I kind of doubt it. Honestly, it seems more like, again, a scared or wounded beast seeking shelter, more than some coordinated plan to go to Moria. So, because he was seeking that kind of security blanket, it would be hard for him ever to decide to give that up after he had gotten into Moria. This, of course, begs the question of how did he get to Moria? Because at the time, Khazad-dûm, yes, had been around during the First Age, but again, it was populated by dwarves. So exactly how did he get there? If I were to hazard a guess, he probably actually just went into a cave within the Misty Mountains and just went far enough down into the earth to where technically he was actually underneath Khazad-dûm from these caves. Again, I'm kind of thinking almost like an insect fleeing into like a wall, right? It just goes in through the small hole and goes, wherever it can, and it doesn't know how close it is to something else. So in this case, the Balrog perhaps didn't know how close it was to Khazad-dûm. He might have even fled further away or to a different place. Because, again, he was fleeing for his life. He was fleeing dwarves that happened to probably be in the War of Wrath as well, so I doubt he would choose a place where there was really anyone else. But he just happened to be beneath Khazad-dûm. On top of this, he might also not have known much about Sauron or any of his plans, the rings, anything at all, outside of Khazad-dûm. I mean, how could he? I think the only way that he might have is after he awoke and took Khazad-dûm about halfway, a little over halfway through the Third Age. The goblins or orcs might have left behind some sign of Sauron, but I don't think the Balrog ever really cared for Sauron. They were on the same level. He was just another Maya. But on top of that, he didn't stand much with Morgoth during the end of the First Age. He fled, he got away. I mean, the Host of the West got Sauron literally on his knees as well, and he did submit a surrender to the Maiar and all of the rest, but he fled. So I don't know if the Balrog really wanted anything to do with him. Sauron wasn't Morgoth, and Morgoth was the only one that could really command the Balrogs. What's more is that, again, with his fear, he might have just been too afraid of elves in particular, the Valar, and whatever else may remain from the Elder Days. He just wanted to escape it all. And that fear that drove him was maybe just what remained after the will of Morgoth left him. He had no other direction other than the perpetual survival and destruction of enemies that would approach him. It's very easy to see his story as after, again, the fall of Thangorodrim. Yes, he devastated the dwarves, and yes, he was a being of pure evil, but also it was just him trying to survive in some ways. When the dwarves broke through and woke him up from his slumber, of course he went into his natural state, which was destruction and devastation and ruination. But also, I mean, he didn't quite know, like the last time that he saw dwarves was also in combat in the First Age, I'm sure. So he probably just had that instinct to wipe them all out so he could survive underground as he had been. And then he had no reason to leave there because the domain, the giant cavern pretty much that was Khazad-dûm, would serve as his abode. But again, the will of Morgoth left him. He wasn't going to be called upon unless the Dark Lord returned. And this brings me actually to another point. An idea that I got from the Tolkien forum, is that the idea of Morgoth's imprisonment in Valinor during those 3 ages of the Valar, the Balrogs actually also laid hidden in the depths of Angband, awaiting Morgoth's return. When he did return, or at least was trying to, he cried out, and these Balrogs helped him when Ungoliant was threatening him. But what's interesting is that when Morgoth wasn't around, they just laid dormant underground in an ancient, ruined hall that was Angband after the Valar had come there. So, again, kind of interesting, and I know that Sauron was in charge of maintaining Angband while Morgoth was gone, but at the same time, again, they didn't really have that allegiance for Sauron that they did for Morgoth. So perhaps when Morgoth's will, when that presence wasn't around, they just stayed hidden underground as much as they could. Now, why underground? This is possible speculation on my part, but I think Balrogs might have actually had fear of the sun and or moon, potentially. In most or all of the times they are mentioned throughout the lore, they are either out and about in Middle-earth before the sun or moon, or after Morgoth's clouds and vapors have blocked out the lights remaining from the 2 trees, right, the remnants of the 2 trees, which were the sun and moon. Even in the fall of Gondolin, I must imagine that much of Morgoth's darkness overcame Gondolin at that time, so perhaps they naturally just sought darkness, and because Balrogs were made up of flame and shadow, the shadow would fear the light. That light might have weakened it, like many other evil creatures in Middle-earth. So it seems that they definitely preferred these underground territories. In an archetypal way, and this is a bit of a meta frame narrative conceptual cop-out answer, the Balrog serves as the boss of the dungeon, or as the great creature guarding the path forward in many ways. He was intrinsically bound to Moria in a storytelling perspective, and he had a rich history, so on more of a meta writing level, there would never be a reason great enough for Tolkien to say the Balrog would leave. Obviously, when Galadriel took power in Lothlorien, he might not have been strong enough to overcome that power, so that kept him from leaving the East Gate. But again, the West Gate, after Eregion was destroyed and so forth, like, he easily could have, but I just don't think he had a reason to. The will of Morgoth left him, so he just really took care of himself and his own survival after wiping the dwarves out of what he saw as now his own domain, his cave, in a way. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. Super interesting topic, because again, if the Balrog had left Moria, just imagine how much devastation it could have brought anywhere, from Rivendell to Bree to the Shire. Lord of the Rings Conquest has the Balrog come to the Shire in one of the missions, and it's insane. Just imagine how much it could have changed the outcome of the War of the Ring if it had allied itself with Sauron. And of course, thankfully for our characters, it never did. And I guess this is also to say, now that I'm wrapping it up here and thinking about it, perhaps Gandalf's sacrifice, it was necessary for the dwarves to reclaim Khazad-dûm. They probably wouldn't have ever been able to defeat the Balrog on their own. But if they had been able to escape Moria, and the 9 members of the Fellowship had been able to get out, who knows if they actually needed to kill Durin's Bane, or if Durin's Bane would have just let them go. We have this kind of fear and insinuation that it might have chased them even into Lorien and brought much more devastation and so forth. But again, it only would have done that, I think, if it felt threatened enough by the Fellowship's passing to do that. And maybe it did, maybe with Gandalf's power or the power of the ring or so forth, like he might have chosen to actually leave his halls. But based on what we see of the past and his past behavior, he probably just would have turned around at the East Gate and let them go if they had just continued onward. But obviously, Gandalf couldn't take that risk, right? Because the Fellowship would have been very easy for the Balrog to overcome. So that's where we'll end our conversation here, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. From this tale, we see that we must beware evils of years gone past, for they may linger in the dark places of the world still. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about Durin's Bane staying in Moria in the comments below. Leave a like and share if you enjoyed. If you'd like to support the channel and I, we have a partnership with Mythology Candles through the link below, or check out Castle Con's Lord of the Ring replicas and use the code WEST at checkout, and please check out our merch. Join our memberships and Patreon for access to our Discord server and our monthly podcast, and take a look at Masters of Mythology, our second channel on myths and legends. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members, Joby Weasel, Ed Patterson, ComicNut64, Zoomi, and Peter Sheppard. Thank you all so much. Please don't forget to subscribe to join the Men of the West, and my friends, thank you all for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.